We just thought we'd do a little bit of a video on the up-and-coming consultation by the government on motorbike licensing. As with all these things, I'm always a bit sceptical of these things because I almost sort of think sometimes that the decision has already been made. We went through a consultation here about putting a bus lane in on the main road, and it was clear there wasn't much consultation. There was a bus lane going in, and that was that. But there is an opportunity to feed back to the government here, and I think we've got to take the opportunity, if it's given to us, to feedback. It's quite complex, this, and it's took quite a bit of reading through, and I have to be honest with you, I'm not very good at sometimes remembering these things, but I think I've got quite a grasp on what the background to this is. So I'm going to go through some of the key points and just sort of, obviously it's up to you to make your own decisions about it, maybe give you some of my thoughts on it and just see where we're at. I'm a big advocate of training. I'm a big advocate of learning to ride a bike, learning to doing a bit more training. Everything you do, the more you ride a bike, the better you are. I have a bit of a view on motorbikes as being a little bit like a chainsaw. If I use a chainsaw, twice a year, then I want to put all the protective gear on and make sure that I'm safe, because I know I'm not that handy with a chainsaw. And the same with motorbikes, the more you use them, the more training you have, the better you are. One of the sort of key areas looking at is CBT. CBT's been in its current format since I think it's about 1990. It stands for compulsory basic training. So take this course before you can go on a motorbike, a small motorbike on the road. And it's a good thing, because I remember years before 1990, they used to sell somebody a motorbike, a 100cc or whatever it was, a 125, and I used to stand there and watch them wobble off out of Friendship Mill where we were, and I used to think, well, if he gets around that first corner, he's going to be okay, which clearly isn't ideal. So a couple of key changes around CBT. Does somebody need to take a theory test prior to doing the CBT? But at the moment, you don't, and it's very much left down to the sort of training body that's training them to make sure that they've read the highway code, know what they're doing before they go out there. The other area is, if you do a CBT on an automatic, are you then restricted to just riding automatics? There's a couple of bits that I think possibly aren't being included in the consultation, which again is probably the industry slightly ahead of the consultation. And would that include e-clutch? Well, that's not been mentioned anywhere in the consultation, so that's another little bit of a blip there. Where you do this theory training, is it before you go out on the road? Is it before you even do your CBT? Or is it afterwards? This is all in the consultation. And the theory test they're lumping the theory and the hazard perception test. I think the government are missing a trick on this. I think personally, I think that the car and motorcycle theory and hazard perception tests should be aligned, so that once you've done your motorcycle theory and hazard perception, that would cover you to drive a car, and vice versa, which would mean training car drivers a little bit more about motorbikes, not asking them to ride a motorbike, but that knowledge of how motorbikes are and how they sit on the road and the road positioning and the things that they can and can't do in terms of filtering and things like that. I think car drivers should have knowledge of that, and I think that would be a major step to improving road safety. And actually that might streamline the process for government, in that they could have one test to cover all aspects of it. There isn't obviously a box for that on the consultation, but there is sections on the consultation when you're filling it in where you can put your own thoughts on it. I have actually filled it in, and that's what I've put. Now whether that will seek through into law, I'd have to see. Another thing around CBT that the government are proposing is that the CBT isn't, at the minute it's in statute, in law, and to change CBT you have to change the law. So another part of the consultation would be that CBT will be took out of statute and could be updated at any time, which, to be honest with you, to me seems a sensible move, really, because technologies change, and obviously, so long as it's not changing it every 5 minutes, and I can't really see the need for that. But obviously if the highway code changes, then obviously the CBT can change in line with that. And another thing is to digitalise CBT, so your certificate, like your MOT. Very much, I assume from what they're saying, very much like your MOT certificate, you would get a paper certificate that's printed off. However, the CBT you'll go to a government website, you put your driver number in, I assume, possibly, maybe driver number and national insurance number, whatever, and your CBT certificate would come up on your licence there, which to me, an entitlement seems a sensible sort of move. Another worry that I've got is that your CBT currently lasts 2 years, and then at the end of the 2 years, what do? Do you ban the rider, or do you for a year or a period, or do you allow them just to take another CBT and carry on? And I think yes, okay, you could be a perpetual learner and never actually take your test. I don't really see there's a massive issue with that. If you're safely riding a motorbike just on a CBT, you may be, I don't know, a nurse at Blackburn Hospital, and you're just going up from sort of Darwin to the hospital and using a moped as a scooter as daily transport. You possibly don't want to go on, them either of going and taking a motorbike test. There's maybe a slight issue around delivery companies using professional drivers on just a CBT. However, that's probably more of could be regulated through insurance, I would have thought, in my opinion. And there's more of a problem with using illegal electric push bikes, which in effect are motorbikes with no training, no CBT, no nothing. So there's definitely plenty of meat to get into. I think, if you are a motorcyclist and if you've got some interest in the sector, it's well worth reading through this, taking the time to complete it. It's got to be in by the 31st of March. It's worth the effort just to get, half an hour of your life, because we're always complaining about motorbike licensing being too onerous, so now's the time to get it in there. As we move on from CBT, we're sort of looking really at progression. At the moment, you've got all these different licenses. So you've got an AM, which is up to 16 years of age, on a 50cc. You can ride you can do a light motorcycle A1 at 17. Then you've got your standard motorcycle up to 35 kilowatts, what we call A2. You can take a test in that at 19. And they've got an unrestricted motorcycle in size or power, and you can do that at 24, or you can progress at 21. So you do 2 years on an A2 and then take your full license. If you start off at 6, there's a lot of tests you could take, and realistically, to ride a big motorbike, you're restricted to doing it at 24. And there's probably not really much reason to take a test on a 125 at 17. Ethos is an approved training body, an approved instructor could sort of pass you off at the next sort of level to get you up to the next level of riding a bike. And I think that's possibly definitely a good idea. And the consensus for that seems to be good. So what we will look at there is you'd have a qualified instructor who could sign you off in effect to the next level of licence. So it would be a progressive course. The government are saying that you could just take a test. They're not going to do away with the barriers or the tests at this level, but they would also give you a progressive system for the licensing, which seems obviously a sensible way of doing it and a way to encourage people to make more training. It's funny really, I speak to motorcyclists every day of the week and we all think that we're better riders than we are, probably me included. Clearly the more training you take, the better you are. There's no doubt about that in my mind. And I want people to, as a dealer, I want people to buy a motorbike off me, enjoy their motorbike, and then come back and change it for another one that they also like and also enjoy and also have loads of pleasure on. Last thing I want is them hurting themselves. That's no good for business. Don't want to make it too onerous that you can get on a 125. I think it's always been the first step for people into motorised transport. Many people we come across who've had a little moped or a motorbike when they were young because they couldn't afford to run a car, insurance or whatever was too expensive, and they've used it to get to and from work or their apprenticeship or whatever it has been. Maybe they've moved on to a car later on, but they've enjoyed the two-wheel experience and they come back to it later in life and buy a big bike and go off touring around Europe. And what a lovely story that is. So we don't want to stop that. Riding motorbikes is a brilliant thing for your brain, but I just thought I'd put a little video together just to see, just try and explain and try and get some awareness out there. So I hope you've enjoyed watching that. I know it's not the most stimulating of subjects that we do videos on, but it is important. So please take the time to have a look at it.